Hey, this is Will. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you how exactly you can get more views on your Instagram stories. I'm going to really dive in deep and explain some of the things that you need to understand about stories, and then how, taking that into consideration, what are the different steps that you can take to make sure that you maximize how many views you are getting on your stories. Now let's get into it. So the first very important thing you have to understand about Instagram stories is that Instagram stories have a very similar algorithm to Instagram posts. So as I'm assuming you already know, when you post something on Instagram, a lot of different factors into consideration, but in general, the main principle is how well is that post performing. So they show it to a certain amount of people. Then if it is performing well, it gets a lot of engagement. With stories in this case, it gets a lot of views. People watch through the whole story. Then it's going to show that story to more people, and so on and so forth. And on the opposite, if people are not really watching, they're skipping these stories that you have posted, then the next stories that you post after that, they are not going to be shown to as many people. And actually, the CEO of Instagram has said before that if you have posted some stories that are not really getting a lot of engagement and you feel like your reach is really down, then you should wait for 24 hours to basically reset that algorithm and then do it again. And obviously, again, there are a lot of different factors that come into play here, and I'm going to explain some of the things later. So it doesn't mean that you are just going to wait 24 hours and now it completely reset it, and it doesn't matter what you've done before and whether people engage it or not. There is, I believe, a long-term sort of algorithm that basically decides or influences how much your stories are being shown, but also there is a short-term algorithm, that's that 24-hour algorithm. So if you post one post, let's say for example here, let's say you put 5 stories and those stories are really not that great and they're really not performing that well, and then you put a story that's the best story you have ever posted in your life. And now because all of these 5 stories in the last, let's say, few hours, they were performing very, very bad. Now, Instagram is not going to show this amazing story that you made to as many people. What you would want to do in this case, you would want to switch them around. You want to post your best content at the beginning. So if you post that amazing story at the beginning, you get a lot of engagement, a lot of people view it, then your other posts are going to get more engagement as well. Instagram also has said that, again, stories aren't just about whether someone views the story or whether someone skips the story. If someone interacts with story, that shows basically, that sends really good signals to Instagram that this story is very good and we probably should show it to more people. So this is one of those things as well that you should keep in mind, that try to use some of the interactive elements so people can actually, maybe they're voting on something or perhaps they are sending you a direct message. You want some kind of interaction if that is possible. And I've seen this not from what just Instagram said, but I've seen this on many accounts, and this is what you, from now on, when you watch Instagram stories, do you notice on some of the bigger accounts that know what they're doing, you will notice that this is how they start out their stories. Another little hack what you can do is you can space out your stories throughout the day. So what you should do, and I mean, this depends case by case, honestly, but Instagram has said that one of the things how they rank stories is also by the recency. So what this means to you is, if let's say you are targeting a specific user, your follower on Instagram, let's say you post your stories in the morning and perhaps they only come on Instagram app in the evening, so it's not as likely that your stories are going to come up for them. However, if you post some stories, let's say in the morning, and then you post some stories in the evening, 5 minutes just before they open the app, it's more likely that they will actually see your stories. And aside from that, there are additional benefits, I would say, because if you post multiple stories throughout the day, then someone is basically opening and engaging with your account multiple times throughout the day, if that makes sense. So for example, I posted a story in the morning, someone opened, watched my story, perhaps they didn't click through my profile, but then later again I posted a different story and they were maybe, now they had more time, they weren't just checking their Instagram very quick. Now when they watched your story, they actually went into my profile. So this basically just increases the chance of people taking more actions within your profile. Another tip that I've seen works really, really well is be a little bit creative with your Instagram stories. So what I mean by this is create a game with your Instagram stories. This is what I've seen on some accounts. They do this really, really well. One other hack that I don't think everyone really thinks about when they're creating stories, but this can not only get you more story views, but in general can help you grow your account. And what I'm talking about here is you want to create stories that are actually shareable stories. People who might not even follow you, they will see those stories, you'll get more views, some of those people might come to your profile, so on and so forth. So this is something that I think is not utilized enough, and it is really, really powerful because again, there are certain things that you might want to post that you don't want to have on your profile, you don't want to have on your wall all the time there because maybe it don't goes quite well with your content. But perhaps you can do that on the stories because the stories, they're going to disappear 24 hours later. So focus on finding what within your specific niche is the type of content that a lot of people would be willing to share. So it's something that either provokes some kind of emotion. I'm not going to go into the whole viral shareable content psychology here. Let me know if you want. I'll talk about this in another episode because I do love that kind of stuff, but just keep in mind this is an amazing thing that you can do for your stories. Another thing you can do and you should be doing as much as it's possible, obviously it's not always going to be possible and this is quite a bit of work. So if you want people to keep on watching your stories, you should have beginning, you should have middle, and you should have end. So basically you should intrigue people enough within, let's say, your first story that people keep on watching to the next and next to find out what is going to happen, how this is going to end. Everything I mentioned, by the way, I will try to leave some links in the description, and I do have some very useful freebies for you to grow your Instagram and business in general. So check out all of the links in the description. And also make sure to check out my Instagram profiles. And every single week I give out one of my courses completely for free. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, take the title, put it on YouTube, find a video, make sure to smash the thumbs up button and leave a comment below to enter the competition. But aside from just stories themselves, honestly, you also have to look into your Instagram account in general. So I know for some people, stories might actually even be more important than their posts because that's maybe the place where they do selling and all of that. But one thing you have to understand is that when, let's say, you just start out posting stories, what Instagram looks at as well is, hey, how are people engaging with your content? If those people that are basically liking your posts a lot, they're leaving comments on your posts, those people are the ones that are very likely to see your stories first. So if you want to increase the amount of views you get on your stories, you also have to concentrate on the engagement on your posts. Another little thing that you can do, and I think this is kind of obvious, but not everyone does it, you want to put subtitles. If you're talking in your stories, you want to put subtitles because that is just a little bit more engaging for a human brain and it's just going to keep people on watching your stories a bit longer. And if you want people to not skip your stories as much, you shouldn't make them too long. I don't know if you have come across this, if you're the same as me, but if I see someone's post, someone's stories that have all of these tiny dots at the top, they posted maybe 30 stories, whatever. I don't even know what's the max amount of stories you can post, but they pretty much posted the max amount you can post in one day. Honestly, most likely it's not going to be top quality content. It's not going to be that entertaining because it's such a high amount of stories, and most likely I'm not going to watch all of them. So you want to make sure that you actually keep your stories short. There were some studies out there, and I believe that the optimal amount is 6 stories per day. Lastly, what I will say is go to your analytics every single week and see how your Instagram stories are performing, how much reach you're getting. You want to also see what was the drop off between, let's say if you posted the first story, how many people saw that story, and then how many people at the end saw that story. So basically just calculate the percentage of what was the drop and do compare that and try out different story strategies. So for 1 week, let's say, do stories that are maybe more sort of just games and see what's your reach then, what is the drop off then, and then the next week do something that's okay, maybe it's more just shareable type of content, maybe I don't know, inspirational type of content for your specific niche, see how that performs. Next week, do something more that's maybe more personal or more sort of storytelling. And again, see how these things perform. The beautiful thing here is Instagram gives us all that data, so we don't actually need to be just guessing around what works and what doesn't. So take those cold hard numbers and see what works best, because every niche is different and different things work for different accounts. So do a lot of testing and tracking. Okay, so I hope you found this useful. As I said, check out all of the links in the description. I have some very useful freebies. Also make sure to check out my Instagram accounts, check out my Instagram stories, what I am doing on my different accounts. If you have any questions or if you have any other suggestions how to get more views on Instagram stories, do leave them down below in the comments. If you found this useful, make sure to smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, put on those notifications. Stay awesome, and I'll see you soon.